Welcome to the Business Interview. I'm Marcus Carlson. It's election time for Africa's biggest economy. Voters in Nigeria are due at the polls on the 14th of February to pick a new president and parliament. There's no shortage of economic challenges in the run-up to the vote. Low oil prices are putting Nigeria's energy-dependent finances under strain. The government has slashed its growth forecast for this year, and on top of that, a Boko Haram insurgency is raging in Nigeria's northeast. For more now on the Nigerian economy, we can turn to the country's Finance Minister, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was appointed to the job back in 2011. Minister, it's a pleasure to have you here in the studio once again.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here, Marcus.
Now, you've cut your growth forecast for this year to 5.5%. You made that cut at the end of 2014. How would you qualify growth in Nigeria at the moment, and how would you describe the Nigerian economy?
Well, we cut our growth forecasts at the time that oil was $65 a barrel, and we submitted the budget at that price. Obviously, the price is lower, and we've prepared several scenarios at $60, at $50, at $45, and with the appropriate measures to make up for the income that would be lost. So we cut the growth forecast to 5.5, but I think we may go even a little lower. We are now expecting anywhere from about 4.5 to 5.5. The IMF has actually forecast 4.8. And it's interesting that even though it's been cut, it's still one of the more robust growth rates in the world. Why is that? The reason is because Nigeria's growth really comes from the non-oil economy. That's where we find very interesting that even though we are having a tough time, it's going to be a very challenging year for us because of the drop in income. We depend 70%.
I was going to say, a lot of your government revenues are coming from the oil sectors.
Yes.
These low oil prices, they must nonetheless be a serious challenge.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a serious challenge when you have your income cut by 50%. That is tough. But the way we're looking, we'll have to make sacrifices. We have to raise more revenues, for instance, and we also have to look at the cost of governance.
What does that mean for the Nigerian population? Yeah,
what I was going to say is that the other way to look at it is that the non-oil sector is what has been growing the economy, growing at 8%. And this means our base is diverse. Our economy is actually diverse. It's our source of revenue that is not diversified. But the good thing is that after rebasing the economy, where it's now the largest economy in Africa, we can tap those non-oil sources to increase our revenue. So this is an opportunity really for Nigeria to diversify not only the base of the economy, but also the sources of revenue. We are trying to do this, the different, cut the cost of governance. When I say that, we are trying to look at to safeguard expenditures that touch on the lives of people. But obviously we have to look at the cost of running government, and we've begun to slim that down in various ways. We have to look at the cost of the executive, the legislature. Everybody has to share in this. So one of the things that we've been able to do, and this is very, very interesting to me because it also has helped us really make government slim it down in a way and save revenues, is the introduction of electronic platforms for our financing. So our new government integrated financial management system, GIFMIS, which is accompanied by biometrics for every civil servant, so we pay people, the real people in the service, has resulted in our being to weed out what we call ghost workers, people who have been introduced into the service who are not really there. And by carefully putting agency after agency on, we've weeded out more than 60,000 of these ghost workers and saved about $1.2 billion.
Okay, so that's one way in which technology, I suppose, is helping the fight against corruption. I want to return to the corruption angle in just a moment, but I first want to ask you about the election now and the challenges that lie ahead for the Nigerian economy, because your boss, President Goodluck Jonathan, is now facing off with Muhammadu Buhari for the presidency. Whoever wins, what are the challenges for Nigeria economically looking ahead?
No, I think whoever wins the challenges will be strong and many, in the sense that if oil prices continue to be low, we'll really need to tap the non-oil sources to build our revenues back up. And that's not going to be so easy, but the opportunity is clearly there. Now, every Nigerian wants to get away from this oil economy and to have an economy that is less dependent. And I think that the objective is really to take this economy from a place where the revenues are 70% dependent on oil, to flip it around, a little bit like Mexico. We should have 2/3 of our revenues from non-oil sources and 1/3 from oil. And get there may take us quite a few years.
You say it's not easy to make this transition. What stands in the way at this moment?
No, what stands in the way is that you have to build institutions to help you do that. Your tax administration, your tax policy have to be changed. And the good news is we've begun those changes. Even before the fall in oil price, we always recognized in this administration that we needed to get this country on the way to using this as an opportunity. So we were working, our Internal Revenue Service was building its capacity, working with McKinsey to try and strengthen itself. And we actually set a target of getting more non-oil revenues. Just, we started with a target maybe not so ambitious, because we wanted to see if we strengthen tax administration, how much more money can we get? And we said, okay, let's see if we can get up to $500 million. And we got $600 million last year, just out of those reforms. So my belief is if we keep strengthening tax administration, if we look at tax policy, let's say we have the lowest VAT in the world in Nigeria, at about 5%. Just doubling that will bring in another $3 billion into the coffers, which will be good for the states, because the states get 85% of that VAT money. So we have a lot of opportunity. If we see this as an opportunity to change the way that the economy is financed, and we use it well, we could come out of this a winner.
Now, you're not the oil minister, so you're not conducting negotiations yourself with other OPEC countries, but do you think that the OPEC needs to move at this stage in order to wind down production, to boost oil prices? Does there need to be some sort of an agreement within OPEC to do something about the current situation?
Well, obviously, as a price taker, which is what Nigeria is, it would be nice, wouldn't it, if both OPEC and non-OPEC members moved a little. But I think rather than spend time worrying about that, what we're spending time doing is saying we don't really want to be an oil economy. Actually, we are not an oil economy. If you look at the base, Nigeria's economy is 51% services, 26% industry, 22% agriculture, 8% telecoms, 1.4% creative industries. If you look at that diverse base, I think we should be worrying more about that and less about where the oil is going. Yes, it would be nice if everybody moved and oil prices could inch up, but I don't think we should spend our time on that. We should see this as the opportunity for Nigeria to truly diversify sources of revenues, because the economic base is already diverse. And that's what I think every Nigerian wants. We don't want to be looking at oil again in the future as the main source. And this is the opportunity.
I want to return to what we spoke about before when it comes to corruption. Now, as finance minister, you've pledged to crack down on corruption. That strife, though, seems to be going very, very slowly, because just recently Nigeria was ranked 136th out of 174 countries in a ranking by Transparency International, which every year, as you know, comes out with a corruption index. It seems to be going very, very slowly, this fight.
Well, Nigeria should be doing better, but it's actually moved up in those rankings. If you go back and look at it over the years, but that's not the point. The point is not to say, you don't want to be in the neighborhood, where your country is being looked at in that light. You don't want to be there. So even though the country has moved up, we should do much better. But let me tell you one observation, because each time people talk about Nigeria, that's the first word that comes up. And really, the country has so many other things going on other than that subject of corruption. It has moved. I'll tell you one of the reasons why I think the move is slow, and that's one of the things that we really need to work on. Institutions. To truly fight corruption, you need to have the institutions, the processes, the systems that block it. Because on the punitive side, you need to punish the people and not allow impunity. That's very important. But if you don't build the institutions to stop it. And if you look at what is the difference, if you have a financial system that is not modernized using technology, it opens the door for people to be able to do fiddle with those finances. You know, if you have a pension system that is still manually being managed, and you cannot put it, now that we have the technology to help it be more efficient, even if you throw a set of people in prison, another set comes in and finds holes, they are going to do the same. So we really need to build those institutions. That's the conclusion that I've come to. And building institutions is not quote unquote sexy. It takes a long time. It's far more sexy to just say we have thrown 15 people into jail. But as you're doing that, I'm not saying that's not important. It's very important and should be done. As you're doing that, you must couple it with making sure that the institutions that will prevent any incidents from happening are done.
Now, you're here for a conference on Franco-African economic and trade relations. 2014 was a tough year for West Africa, at least from the outside. You had an Ebola epidemic. You had the oil prices tumbling. You also have Boko Haram in the northeast of Nigeria. What do you think the perception is among investors, among outside investors, when it comes to West Africa in general and Nigeria in particular?
We were invited by Minister Sapin and Minister Macron and by His Excellency President François Hollande because they felt that if the conference does not have Nigeria, something big will be missing. They feel Nigeria is a very important country, important for investors. Nigeria is France's largest trading partner on the continent. Yes, we faced a lot of challenges in West Africa and Nigeria in 2014. But for us, let me just take Nigeria first for a moment. Ebola, the president did a fantastic job. He was on it with lightning speed to put in place the processes and mechanisms, working with two of the states where it occurred, Lagos State and Rivers State. They also worked hard. In concert, the Nigerian people said, no, we will not let this thing happen. They obeyed the instructions and rules, and we got ahead of it. You asked me about Boko Haram. Of course, it will affect investor perceptions, that, you know, on security. One of the things that is happening on Boko Haram is that this week, and we've just seen a resurgence of the cooperation, regional cooperation between neighboring countries of Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon, and Niger. Because this problem is not just a national problem, it's a regional and a global problem. Working together, they are now pushing, and we are seeing many more successes. So we hope that with that push and with what is happening with Ebola now, you know, we will see a brighter 2015, even though oil prices are down for us. But, you know, we have the measures to take care of this.
Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, we have run out of time. I want to thank you very much indeed for speaking to us here at France 24. With that, we're going to be wrapping up this edition of the Business Interview. Thanks for watching.